The dress meant to ruin everything. Rain didn't fall on Ashwood Hill so much as it attacked it, hard, slanted sheets that turned the long driveway into a black ribbon of water. Lightning stitched the sky in pale seams, and each thunderclap made the chandeliers inside the Rahman house tremble like they were afraid of what might arrive. Aliyah Rahman stood in front of the mirror in her childhood bedroom and tried not to cry. Not because she was sad. Because if she cried she might stop. And if she stopped, she might do what her father wanted. Smile politely, shake the hand of his important guest, and let herself be handed over like a signature on a contract. She tugged at the dress she'd chosen on purpose. It was awful. A flat, lifeless brown that didn't flatter anyone. The fabric was cheap and stiff, like it had been cut from a curtain. The neckline was too high, the sleeves too puffy, the hem a strange length that made her legs look shorter than they were. It didn't say beautiful daughter. It didn't say future bride. It screamed problem. That was the idea. Behind her, Miriam, the housekeeper who had raised Aliyah more than her own mother ever had, made a sound between a gasp and a prayer. "Bibi." "No," Miriam whispered, clutching a silk gown over her arm like it was a shield. "Please. Put on the blue one. The one with the pearls. Your father will." "He'll what?" Aliyah's voice was calm, but her hands shook as she pinned her hair back too tightly, like pain was the only thing that could keep her steady. "Yell? Threaten? Remind me how much I owe him for being born into his house." Miriam's eyes filled. "He is your father. He is a man with debts," Aliyah said softly. "And tonight he is trying to pay them with me." Miriam stepped closer, lowering her voice as if the walls had ears. In the Rahman house they often did. Gossip had a way of seeping through everything. "Your father's guest is not like the others," Miriam said. "He doesn't come for dinner. He comes like a storm. Your father has been pacing since dawn. He keeps checking the gate camera." Aliyah pressed lipstick to her mouth, then deliberately smeared it, just slightly, not clownish but enough to look careless. Like she didn't respect the moment. "Good," she said. "Let him panic." Miriam's hands trembled around the gown. "This is not a game, Bibi." "Mr. Rahman said the guest has influence." "That word again," Aliyah muttered. "Influence. Power. Prestige." She turned back to the mirror and stared at herself. Her face was pale from stress. Her eyes looked bigger than usual, bruised underneath from too many nights not sleeping. Her hair, normally soft and neat, was pulled into a rough twist that made her look harsher than she felt. She didn't look like a daughter being presented. She looked like a girl preparing for war. Aliyah reached for the small framed photo on her vanity, the one she kept hidden behind perfume bottles so no one would ask questions. A man stood in the picture, half turned away, rain on his shoulders, dark hair damp against his forehead. His eyes were not visible in the photo, but she remembered them anyway. She remembered the way they had watched her like she was a secret. Paris. 3 years ago. A week that had felt like a dream she wasn't allowed to keep. He had called himself Sebastian. He had spoken like someone who carried centuries inside him. He had looked at old buildings like he remembered them being new. He had held her hand one night near the river, and for a moment Aliyah had believed in impossible things. Then he disappeared. No goodbye. No number. Just a note slipped under her hotel door in elegant handwriting. "Wait for me." Aliyah laughed without humor and set the frame down. "I waited," she whispered. "And it broke me." Downstairs, the heavy front doors groaned open. Aliyah heard her father's voice, loud, polished, too cheerful. The kind of voice men used when they were terrified but wanted to sound in control. "Welcome. Welcome to my home. You honor us, sir. Please, come in out of this dreadful rain." Aliyah's stomach twisted. Miriam rushed to the window, peeking through the curtain. "The car?" Miriam breathed. "Ya Allah." Aliyah didn't move. "What?" "It's black," Miriam said. "Long. Like a hearse. And there are others behind it. 2. Maybe 3. With no lights." Aliyah's pulse thudded. "Good," she said even though her throat had gone dry. "Let him see I'm not impressed." Miriam grabbed her wrist. "Aliyah, please, don't provoke this man." Aliyah looked down at Miriam's hand, gentle but desperate. Then she covered it with her own. "Miriam," she said quietly, "I don't have any other weapons." The words hung in the air like smoke. Then Aliyah lifted her chin, smoothed the ugly dress and walked out. The Rahman house had once been a symbol of pride. Old money. Old walls. A place where people whispered compliments they didn't mean. Tonight it felt like a cage dressed up as a palace. The dining room was set like a stage. Long table, too many forks, crystal glasses that reflected candlelight into sharp fragments. Her father had gone all in, because desperation made men theatrical. Mr. Rahman stood at the head of the table, smiling too hard. His suit was expensive, but it fit oddly as if he'd lost weight from stress. His fingers kept tapping his ring against the table. Beside him, a man stood near the fireplace. He didn't sit. He didn't eat. He didn't look around like he needed to learn where he was. He was tall, so tall the room seemed to make space for him. His suit was dark and perfectly cut, but it wasn't flashy. It was the kind of elegance that didn't need to prove itself. His hair was black, combed back as if rain couldn't touch him. And his presence. Aliyah slowed mid-step, a chill running down her spine. It was like walking into colder air. Like the candles burned lower in respect. Her father noticed her and brightened with forced joy. Aliyah. Come, my dear. Our guest has been waiting. Aliyah didn't look at the man yet. She went to the sideboard first, picked up a grape and ate it slowly, chewing like she had all the time in the world. Then she turned. And the world tilted. The man near the fireplace looked up. Dark eyes, so dark they seemed to swallow light, locked onto hers. Aliyah's lungs forgot how to work. Because she knew that face. Not exactly, 3 years did something to people, but this wasn't just time. This was transformation. Paris Sebastian had been warm enough to smile, gentle enough to joke, human enough to feel like a miracle. The man standing here was colder. Sharper. Dangerous in a way that made the room feel suddenly too small. He took one step forward, and Aliyah's heart slammed like it wanted out of her chest. Aliyah, he said, voice low, familiar and terrifying. Her father blinked. You know my daughter? The man's gaze didn't leave hers. I do. Aliyah's fingers curled into fists to keep them from shaking. Her mind scrambled for logic. This couldn't be him. And yet, Sebastian? She whispered before she could stop herself. Something like amusement flickered in his eyes. Not kindness. Not warmth. Recognition. You remember? He said softly. Good. Her father laughed nervously, trying to steer the moment back into a shape he controlled. Well, small world, yes? My daughter is social. She studied abroad. Perhaps you met. Your daughter, the man interrupted, still watching Aliyah, is not an item on your shelf to barter. The temperature in the room dropped. Mr. Rahman's smile faltered. Of course not, sir. You misunderstand. This dinner is simply a discussion. A proposal. A settlement, the man corrected. Aliyah's stomach clenched. So Miriam had been right. This wasn't romance. This was debt. Aliyah forced her voice steady. My father told me he invited a guest. He didn't tell me he invited a ghost from my past. Her father's face tightened. Aliyah, mind your tone. The man's attention moved, just briefly, to the ugly dress. His eyes traced the cheap fabric. The ridiculous sleeves. The deliberate sabotage. Then he looked back at her face and the corner of his mouth lifted. This is what you chose, he murmured. It's what you deserve, she shot back, then immediately regretted it because the air shifted again, like the room itself reacted to her defiance. Her father hissed, Aliyah. But the man didn't seem offended. If anything, he seemed entertained. You wore this to repel me, he said. To make me walk away. Aliyah swallowed. Yes. And yet, he said, stepping closer, you didn't run. She forced herself not to move backward. I'm not a coward, she said. Your father is, the man replied casually, and Mr. Rahman stiffened like he'd been slapped. How dare you, her father began. The man finally turned his full attention to Mr. Rahman. Aliyah had never seen fear bloom so fast on a man's face. Mr. Rahman's words died. His hands trembled at his sides. The man's voice was calm. You invited me to your home. You will not raise your voice at her in my presence. Mr. Rahman tried to recover. Sir, with respect, she is my daughter. And she is not your currency, the man said. He turned back to Aliyah. You look tired, he observed as if they were alone. You were never good at pretending you don't feel things. Aliyah's throat burned. 3 years, she said. You vanished. You left me with a note like I was a chapter you could close and reopen whenever you wished. His eyes darkened, and for a moment she saw something old behind them, something that didn't belong to any ordinary man. I left because if I stayed, he said quietly, you would have died. Aliyah blinked. Her father snapped, What is this? What are you two talking about? The man ignored him, still locked on Aliyah. You're here because your father called for help. He called, desperate. Aliyah's jaw tightened. He called because he wanted to sell me. The man's gaze dropped to her hands, to the way she held herself like she was bracing for impact. Then he said something that made her blood run cold. He cannot sell what already belongs to the crown. Aliya's breath caught. What did you say? Mr. Rahman laughed too loudly as if the sound could erase the sentence. Ah yes, he jokes. European humor. Please sit, both of you. Dinner is served. But the man didn't sit. He didn't need to. Aliya's palms were sweating. Who are you? He studied her, then answered like a blade sliding from a sheath. My name is King Valerius of House Varin. Aliya stared. Her brain tried to reject it. King. House. This wasn't a fantasy novel. This was her dining room. But the way her father's face drained of color. The way Miriam, standing in the doorway, crossed herself and whispered a prayer. Aliya realized her father knew. He had known. Her voice came out thin. That's not real. Valerius's eyes softened by a fraction. It is real. Mr. Rahman stammered, Your Majesty. Aliya whipped toward her father. You knew. Mr. Rahman's face was wet with sweat now. Aliya, listen. This is for the family? For the family? Her laugh sounded broken. Or for your pride? For your mistakes? Valerius's gaze sharpened. Tell her what you owe. Mr. Rahman swallowed hard. I made investments. The market shifted. I tried to recover. You gambled, Aliya said. Mr. Rahman's eyes flashed. I did what I had to do to keep us afloat. And when you sank, Aliya snapped, you decided to grab me as the lifeboat. Silence. The candles flickered even though there was no breeze. Valerius's voice was quiet. There are people outside your gates, Mr. Rahman? Mr. Rahman froze. What? Valerius's eyes shifted toward the dark windows. They've been outside for several minutes. Watching. Aliya's stomach dropped. Mr. Rahman stumbled to the window, yanking the curtain aside. Outside, beyond the rain and the iron fence, headlights sat unmoving in the dark. 3 cars. No sound. No movement. Just presence. Mr. Rahman's voice cracked. They found me? Aliya turned slowly. Who found you? Mr. Rahman's lips trembled. The men I borrowed from. Valerius's jaw tightened. Not men. Aliya's skin prickled. Then what? Valerius's gaze returned to her, and for the first time, something like regret crossed his face. Hunters, he said. And then, the chandelier died. All the lights went out at once. Darkness swallowed the room like a mouth. Aliya screamed instinctively, stumbling back, her chair scraping. Her father shouted, Miriam! The breaker. Hurry! Valerius's voice cut through it, low, controlled, commanding. Stay behind me. Aliya's heart pounded so hard it hurt. In the darkness the air changed. The scent of rain was suddenly mixed with something sharp, like metal. Bootsteps thundered. Glass shattered. A window exploded inward, wind and rain rushing into the room like a living thing. Flashlights snapped on, harsh beams cutting the dark. Aliya raised her hand to block the blinding light, but it caught her dress, making her glow an ugly brown under the beam. A voice barked, target located. Female. Secure her. A man lunged at her, masked, armored, moving like he'd done this 100 times. Aliya didn't think. She grabbed the nearest object, a heavy silver serving tray, and swung. The tray hit the man's shoulder with a loud clang, but he barely flinched. He grabbed her wrist and twisted. Pain shot up her arm. Aliya cried out and kicked, her heel connecting with his shin. He grunted, tightening his grip. Enough, the man snarled, pulling something from his belt, small, black, humming with a faint electric whine. A weapon. A tool. Something meant to subdue. Aliya's breath came in panicked gasps. Then Valerius moved. One moment he was across the room. The next he was between Aliya and the attacker, like a shadow taking shape. He didn't punch. He didn't struggle. He simply placed a hand on the man's chest and pushed. The man flew backward, literally lifted off his feet, and slammed into the far wall, collapsing like his bones had forgotten how to hold him up. The other hunters froze. Aliya stood behind Valerius, shaking, rain on her face, pulse roaring in her ears. Valerius's silhouette was still. Too still. Like a predator deciding how much mercy the prey deserved. One hunter raised his weapon. Fire. Aliya ducked, expecting noise, impact, death. But instead she heard something strange, tiny metallic taps, like coins dropped on stone. She looked up. Valerius stood unhurt. The bullets had fallen to the floor around his feet. As if the air itself refused to let them touch him. The hunters swore. One shouted, It's him. It's the king. Aliya's mind spun. King. Hunters. Bullets that wouldn't land. This was impossible. Valerius turned his head slightly, and in the dim lightning flash, Aliyah saw his eyes. Not black. Crimson. Glowing like embers under ash. He spoke, and his voice was not fully human anymore. You entered my house, he said, each word slow and lethal, and you touched what is under my protection. The hunters faltered. One whispered, almost fearful, we don't want a war. You brought it, Valerius replied. Aliyah's body trembled with fear, but underneath it, something else flickered. A memory. A sensation from Paris. The night by the river when Sebastian had looked at her like he was starving and swore he would never hurt her. And now he looked like he could burn the world. The hunters shifted, regrouping like wolves. Aliyah's breath hitched. She didn't want to die in her father's dining room. She didn't want to be a target. She didn't want to be someone's collateral. Valerius lifted one hand. The candles flared, suddenly bright, sudden heat. The hunters flinched. And in that split second, Aliyah saw something hanging from the necklace of the nearest hunter. An emblem carved into dark metal. A red hand. Her stomach lurched. Valerius's voice lowered. The red hand. Mr. Rahman cried from somewhere under the table. I didn't mean to. I didn't know they'd come here. Aliyah snapped, rage bursting through fear. You brought them to me. Her father sobbed. I was trying to save us. Valerius didn't look away from the hunters. Aliyah, he said, voice suddenly softer, as if he was speaking only to her, when I tell you to run, you run. Aliyah's throat tightened. I don't. Aliyah, he repeated, and that single word carried something that made her obey. In the storm of flashing lights and trembling shadows, she took one step back. The hunters surged forward again. Valerius moved, fast, controlled, terrifyingly precise. He disarmed without cruelty but without hesitation. He broke weapons. He knocked men down. He made them collide with furniture like they were weightless compared to him. Aliyah crouched near the doorway, shaking, eyes wide, rain dripping from her hair, watching the impossible unfold. And then, a second wave entered. Not through the windows. Through the walls. A shadow seeped into the room like smoke, and a coldness rolled over the floor. The hunters froze too, startled. A voice spoke from the darkness, smooth, mocking, ancient. You always did like collecting fragile things, Valerius. Aliyah's blood turned to ice. Valerius's entire body went still. His voice became deadly quiet. Lucien. A figure stepped into the candlelight. Not a hunter. Not human. Pale as moonlight, smiling like a knife. A vampire. And the way he looked at Aliyah wasn't hunger for blood. It was hunger for suffering. She's lovely, Lucien purred. Is this the human you've been hiding? Valerius shifted slightly, placing himself more fully between Lucien and Aliyah. She is not yours, Valerius said. Lucien chuckled. Everything breaks eventually. Aliyah's knees nearly gave out. This was not just debt collectors. This was something older. Something personal. Lucien's gaze slid past Valerius, landing on Aliyah like she was a toy. What a shame, he said. You wore that dreadful dress for nothing. Aliyah's breath hitched. And then something happened that she did not plan. Words rose in her throat, words she had never learned, never studied, never spoken. They weren't English. They weren't Urdu. They felt like they came from a dream she didn't remember having. Aliyah's lips moved, and the ancient language poured out of her like it had been waiting. Varinth, Kyle Rune. The room snapped silent. Even the storm outside seemed to hesitate. Lucien's smile vanished. Valerius's head turned sharply toward her, eyes widening, just slightly. And for the first time since he arrived, the king looked shocked. Where did you learn that? He demanded softly. Aliyah stared at her own mouth like it had betrayed her. I don't know. Lucien took a slow step back. Fear flickered across his perfect face, quickly masked by anger. Impossible, he hissed. No human should know the queen's tongue. Valerius's voice dropped to a whisper only Aliyah could hear. Not impossible, he said. Not if you are what I think you are. Aliyah's heart slammed. What I am, she whispered. Valerius didn't answer. He simply reached back and grabbed her hand. His skin was cold but not cruel. His grip was iron, but protective. Now, he said, voice absolute, we leave. Aliyah looked over her shoulder. Her father was still under the table, sobbing, broken. For a moment she wanted to stay, wanted to scream at him until he understood what he'd done to her life. But then Lucien's gaze returned to her, dark with promise. And Aliyah realized, if she stayed she would become a lesson. A warning. A victim. So she did the one thing she never thought she would do. She took the monster's hand and ran with him into the storm. Outside, the night was chaos, rain, headlights, shouting. Valerius moved through it like he owned it. A black car waited at the edge of the driveway, engine already roaring, door already open as if it had been expecting them. Aliyah stumbled inside, breath tearing from her lungs. Valerius slid into the driver's seat and slammed the door. The car lunged forward. Aliyah turned back. The Rahman house stood behind them, lights flickering, shadows moving, her father's world collapsing. She should have felt relief. Instead she felt something worse. A pull. A sense that tonight wasn't the end of anything. Tonight was the beginning. Valerius's hands were steady on the wheel, eyes fixed on the dark road ahead. Aliyah's voice trembled. "You're really a vampire?" He didn't deny it. He didn't soften it. He simply said, "Yes." Aliyah swallowed. "And my father, he invited you because he thought my name would frighten his enemies," Valerius said. "He thought borrowing power was the same as possessing it." Aliyah's hands clenched in her lap. "And you came because of him?" Valerius's jaw tightened. "No," he said. His eyes flicked to her for half a second, enough to make her pulse stutter. "I came because of you." Aliyah's throat tightened painfully. "You left me." Valerius's voice dropped. "Because I loved you." The car swerved around a bend. Headlights appeared behind them, fast, chasing. Aliyah's fear surged again. "They're following." Valerius's mouth hardened. "Let them." Aliyah stared at him. At the cold beauty. At the quiet violence under his calm. At the impossible truth that the man she had loved as a mystery in Paris was not a man at all. And yet, his hand shifted from the wheel for a fraction of a second to cover hers, just briefly. A silent vow. A promise without words. Aliyah's eyes burned. She whispered, "What am I to you?" Valerius's answer was so low it barely reached her. "The reason I will burn kingdoms," he said, "and the only thing that can make me feel human." Behind them the hunters closed in. Ahead of them the night opened like a gate. And somewhere beyond the storm, a vampire kingdom waited, watching, hungry and full of secrets that had been sleeping for centuries. Including hers. The night that changed her blood. The road vanished beneath the wheels. Rain blurred the world into streaks of silver and shadow, headlights slicing through darkness like blades. The black car roared forward, engine screaming as if it understood the urgency of escape. Aliyah's hands were clenched so tightly in her lap that her fingers ached, but she didn't notice. Her entire body was vibrating with fear, shock, and something far more dangerous, awakening. Behind them the hunters followed. 2 SUVs, sleek and merciless, their headlights unblinking. A man leaned out of one sunroof, weapon raised, rain plastering his hair to his skull. "They're gaining," Aliyah cried. Valerius didn't look back. He didn't need to. "I know," he said calmly. The car took a sharp turn that should have sent them skidding into a ravine. Instead, it clung to the road as if the asphalt itself bowed to Valerius's will. Aliyah gasped, bracing herself against the door. "You're not human," she whispered, the words finally catching up to her fear. "No," Valerius replied. "But neither are they." Aliyah swallowed hard. "Lucien," he called himself, "your equal." Valerius's jaw tightened. Once, a flash of lightning illuminated his face, and for a heartbeat Aliyah saw something beneath the composed exterior, rage. Boundless. Carefully chained. "He was my brother in blood," Valerius continued. "And my greatest mistake." A thunderous boom split the sky as a projectile streaked toward them. "Valerius!" Aliyah screamed. He jerked the wheel, accelerating impossibly fast. The explosion detonated behind them, shattering trees and showering the road with debris. The shockwave rocked the car, sending Aliyah slamming against the seat. Before panic could take her fully, Valerius reached across her, gripping her shoulder. "Look at me," he commanded. She did. And the fear loosened its grip. His eyes, still faintly glowing crimson, held her steady like anchors in a storm. "Breathe," he said. "They will not touch you." Aliyah sucked in air, shaky but obedient. The SUVs closed in again. Valerius exhaled slowly, then did something that shattered the last fragments of Aliyah's old reality. He whispered a word. Not English. Not anything she recognized. The road ahead rippled. Then it split. The world itself seemed to tear open, revealing a narrow path of silver mist that hadn't existed a second before. Aliyah screamed as the car plunged into it. The hunters didn't slow down. They followed. For a moment, everything was weightless. Sound disappeared. Then, the car slammed onto solid ground. Aliyah gasped as her vision cleared. They were no longer on a highway. They were deep in a forest, ancient, towering trees rising like cathedral pillars, their bark etched with glowing runes. The air was colder, heavier, humming with power. The mist vanished behind them. The SUVs never emerged. Aliyah turned in her seat, heart racing. Where did they go? Valeria stopped the car. The engine fell silent. They are not invited here, he said. Aliyah stared at the forest, awe cutting through terror. Where is here? Valerius opened his door and stepped out. Rain no longer fell. The sky above was clear, moonlight spilling like silver across the forest floor. He came around to her side and opened her door, extending his hand. Aliyah hesitated. Not because she didn't trust him. Because she did, and that frightened her more than the hunters ever had. Slowly she placed her hand in his. The moment their skin touched, heat surged through her veins. Not pain. Not fire. Recognition. Valerius stilled. His eyes snapped to hers. You felt that, he said quietly. Aliyah nodded, breathless. What was it? Your blood responding, he said. To this place. To me. Her heart hammered. I'm human. Valerius studied her like a puzzle that had haunted him for centuries. You are, he said. But you are also something else. The forest stirred. Shapes moved between the trees, figures emerging silently, gracefully. Vampires. Dozens of them. All dressed in dark finery, all deadly still. They knelt. Every single one. Aliyah froze. Why are they? Because you stand beside me, Valerius said. A tall woman with silver hair stepped forward, her eyes glowing violet. She bowed her head deeply. My king, she said. Then her gaze lifted, to Aliyah. Her expression changed. Shock rippled through her composure. And her? Valerius's hand tightened around Aliyah's. This is Aliyah Rahman, he said. She is under my protection. A murmur swept through the gathered vampires. Protection was not a small word. The silver-haired woman inhaled sharply. The council must be summoned. Aliyah whispered, Council? Valerius's voice was steady. The vampire royalty. Aliyah's knees nearly buckled. You're taking me to meet them? No, Valerius said softly. I am taking them to meet you. The castle rose from the forest like a living thing. Black stone, impossibly old, etched with symbols that pulsed faintly as Aliyah passed. Torches ignited on their own, lining the path as if welcoming, or warning. Inside the air was cool and hushed. Every step echoed. Every gaze followed her. Aliyah had never felt so visible and so small. Valerius led her through towering halls until they reached a circular chamber. Thrones of obsidian lined the walls, already occupied by figures radiating power. Kings, queens, ancients. The silver-haired woman announced, Valerius of House Varin returns. He brings a human. Whispers rippled. One voice cut through them, smooth, disdainful. A human. Lucian stepped from the shadows, unharmed, smiling like the devil himself. You disappoint me, brother. Aliyah's blood went cold. Valerius placed himself subtly in front of her. You are not welcome here. Lucian chuckled. And yet, here I am. The council stirred uneasily. Lucian's gaze slid past Valerius, locking onto Aliyah. His smile sharpened. There it is, he murmured. I can feel it now. Aliyah's chest tightened. Feel what? Lucian's eyes gleamed. The queen's mark. The chamber exploded into chaos. Valerius whirled. What did you say? Lucian laughed softly. She doesn't know? Oh, Valerius. How delicious. A vampire elder rose, voice trembling. Impossible. The queen's bloodline ended centuries ago. Lucian pointed at Aliyah. And yet it stands before you, wearing a mortal heart. Aliyah's vision swam. Queen? Bloodline? She shook her head. This is insane. I'm just... The ancient language surged again, unbidden, ripping from her throat. The runes on the walls blazed. Every vampire in the chamber gasped, and then dropped to one knee. Including the council. Including Valerius. Aliyah stared in horror. What did I do? She whispered. Valerius looked up at her, awe naked in his eyes. You spoke the binding, he said. The language only one being can command. Lucian's smile faded. For the first time, fear touched his face. Aliyah's heart pounded painfully. What does that mean? Valerius rose slowly, never taking his eyes off her. It means, he said, voice thick with reverence, You are not merely destined to stand beside a king. The chamber held its breath. You were born, Valerius finished, to become one. Aliya's legs gave out. Valerius caught her before she fell, cradling her against his chest as the ancient castle trembled around them. And in that moment, held by a vampire king, surrounded by kneeling immortals, Aliya understood one terrifying truth. Her life as a powerless human girl was over. And the war for her soul had just begun. The crown that refused her. Aliya woke screaming. Not from pain. From memory. Stone. Firelight. Knees hitting marble. Hundreds of immortal eyes lowering before her like she was gravity itself. Valerius's voice, steady, reverent, terrified, calling her something she could not accept. Queen. She bolted upright, breath tearing from her chest. The room was dark but not frightening, lit by soft blue flames floating in glass orbs along the walls. Heavy curtains stirred as if breathing. The bed beneath her was impossibly wide, layered in fabrics that felt older than empires. She was not in her father's house. She was not even in the human world anymore. Aliya pressed her palms to her face, grounding herself. This isn't real, she whispered. This can't be real. You are awake. Valerius's voice came from the shadows near the balcony. Aliya flinched. He stood there unmoving, arms crossed behind his back, dressed not in a modern suit but in dark, flowing garments edged with silver thread. He looked less like a businessman now, and more like what he truly was. A king. You shouldn't be here, she said hoarsely. Valerius turned, his expression unreadable. You should not have been born, he replied gently. And yet here you are. Anger flared, sudden and sharp. Don't talk about me like I'm a prophecy. His jaw tightened. I'm trying not to. Aliya swung her legs off the bed and stood, unsteady but determined. Lucian said I carry the queen's mark. Everyone knelt. The walls answered me. That doesn't mean I want this. Valerius took a step closer. Power does not ask permission. Then I don't want power, she snapped. I want my life back. Silence stretched between them. Valerius studied her, really studied her, not as a ruler, not as fate incarnate, but as the woman he had once walked beside along the Seine. Your life, he said quietly, was already taken from you the moment others decided you were small enough to use. That hit harder than any revelation. Aliya looked away. That doesn't mean I agree to be this. You don't have to, Valerius said. She turned sharply. Don't lie to me. I am not, he replied. But refusing the crown has consequences. Her chest tightened. For who? For everyone. The council chamber was colder the second time. Not physically. Emotionally. Aliya stood alone at its center now, no hand to hold, no place to hide. Valerius remained behind her, close but not touching. A deliberate choice. Let them see her stand on her own. The ancient vampires watched with expressions ranging from awe to open suspicion. One elder rose, a woman with eyes like frost and a voice sharpened by centuries. You are the last echo of Queen Nyxera, she said. Her blood sleeps in you. I don't remember any past lives, Aliya said evenly. I remember working 2 jobs and being treated like I was disposable. Murmurs rippled. Another elder leaned forward. The queen united our houses. Balanced hunger with law. Without her we fractured. Lucian's laughter broke the tension. Oh please, he drawled. Let's not romanticize the dead. Valerius's voice turned lethal. You will be silent. Lucian smirked. Or what? You'll kill me again? A hush fell. Aliya's heart skipped. Again? Lucian's eyes gleamed. Ask him. Valerius said nothing. The frost-eyed elder turned slowly to Valerius. Is this true? Valerius finally spoke. I executed Lucian 500 years ago for treason. Aliya's breath caught. Lucian bowed mockingly. He did. Tore my heart out. Burned my body. Very dramatic. Then why are you alive? Aliya asked. Lucian's gaze snapped to her. Because the queen's blood does not allow true death. The room stilled. Lucian smiled wider. Which means as long as you exist, so do I. Aliya staggered back a step. Valerius moved instantly, gripping her arm. That is not how it works. Lucian tilted his head. Isn't it? The elder counselors whispered urgently. The frost-eyed woman's voice hardened. This changes everything. If the queen's blood is awake, the old laws may return. Aliya pulled her arm free. Stop talking about me like I'm a key you can pass around. The chamber fell silent. She lifted her chin, voice trembling, but strong. I didn't ask for your war. I didn't ask for your crown. But I will not be treated like property again, by humans or monsters. Something shifted. Respect, slow, reluctant, moved through the room. Lucien's smile thinned. You're interesting. I'll enjoy breaking you. Valeria stepped forward, fury blazing. You will not touch her. Lucien laughed. You don't own her. Aliyah met Lucien's gaze, fear burning, but not consuming her. You're wrong, she said quietly. He doesn't own me. Lucien raised a brow. Then why do you stay at his side? Aliyah didn't answer. She turned to Valerius instead. Did you know, she asked, about me? Valerius met her eyes, unflinching. I suspected. After Paris. Your blood reacted to my presence then. I left because if others sensed it, they would hunt you. And now? Now, he said softly, they already are. A bell tolled through the castle, deep and ominous. An alarm. A guard burst into the chamber, dropping to one knee. My king. The borders are breached. Bloodbound clans. And humans. Aliyah's heart sank. My father. Valerius nodded grimly. They will use him to reach you. Lucien's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Let the games begin. Aliyah's fists clenched. No, she said. Everyone turned to her. She stepped forward, pulse roaring in her ears. I won't run, she said. I won't hide behind you. And I won't let innocent people bleed because of me. Valerius's voice softened. Aliyah. I will face this, she said. But on my terms. The ancient language stirred again, stronger now, clearer. The runes on the floor responded like living things. Lucien took an involuntary step back. Valerius stared at her, not with fear. With pride. You are choosing, he said. Yes, Aliyah replied. For the first time in my life. She turned to the council. I don't accept your crown, she said. Not yet. But I will protect what you cannot balance. Silence. Then, slowly, one elder knelt. Then another. Not in submission. In acknowledgement. Lucien hissed. This isn't over. Aliyah met his gaze, voice steady. No, she said. It's just getting fair. Valerius moved beside her, close enough that his presence steadied her without overpowering her. Outside, the castle walls trembled as enemies gathered. Inside, a human girl who had once been dismissed, traded, and hunted stood at the center of an ancient world. Not as a victim, but as a force. And Valerius knew with terrifying certainty. If she survived what was coming, the vampire world would never be the same. The choice that bled. The first scream echoed through the lower city at dawn. Aliyah felt it before she heard it, like a tremor in her chest, sharp and wrong, as if the world itself had flinched. She was standing at the balcony of the high tower, wrapped in a dark cloak someone had placed around her shoulders without asking. Below, the vampire capital stretched outward in tiers of black stone and silver flame, ancient and alive. And under siege. They've crossed the outer wards, said the silver-haired commander, her voice tight. Bloodbound clans from the east. Mercenary covens. And humans. Aliyah closed her eyes. Hunters, she whispered. And my father. Valerius stood beside her, silent as a blade. The wind lifted his cloak, revealing armor beneath, old, ceremonial, etched with runes that pulsed faintly in time with his heartbeat. He had not touched her since the council chamber. Not because he didn't want to. Because he was afraid. They will not reach you, he said. Aliyah shook her head. They will try until they burn this world to get to me. The commander hesitated. My king, the people are afraid. They know the queen's blood has awakened. Aliyah turned sharply. I am not your queen. The commander bowed anyway. Not yet. That word again. Yet. Aliyah's hands trembled. She clenched them, feeling the strange, steady warmth beneath her skin, power humming like a second pulse. It frightened her. It also made something painfully clear. They're not just here to kill, Aliyah said. They're here to force a choice. Valerius's gaze flicked to her. What choice? Crown or chaos, she replied. Me, or everyone else. The city bells began to ring, deep, frantic tones that sent vampires rushing through the streets below. Smoke rose from the outer districts. Shouts followed. Valerius turned fully toward her now. I will end this. Aliyah met his eyes. By slaughter. By protection, he corrected. By proving them right, she said quietly. That power always answers with blood. His jaw tightened. You are asking me to let them hurt you. I'm asking you to trust me. Silence stretched between them, heavy with everything they hadn't said since Paris. Valerius exhaled slowly. If you step beyond these walls, every faction will sense you. Including Lucian. Aliyah swallowed. I know. And if he reaches you. I know, she repeated. Valerius's hand curled into a fist. I have ruled for centuries without fear. You are the first thing that makes me hesitate. Aliyah's voice softened. Because you care. He didn't deny it. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the cold of him, the restraint in every inch of his posture. You once told me, she said, that protection without choice is just another cage. Valerius closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, something had shifted. Go, he said. But not alone. The lower city burned with panic and rumor. Aliyah walked through it hooded, flanked not by guards but by Valerius himself. No crown, no throne, no spectacle. Just a tall man in dark armor, moving like a shadow at her side. Vampires stared. Some bowed. Some recoiled. Some whispered her name like a prayer or a curse. She's human, someone hissed. She's worse, another replied. She's balance. Aliyah stopped in the central square. The noise fell away. Across the stone plaza stood the enemy. Hunters in tactical gear. Blood-bound vampires with crimson sigils carved into their skin. Mercenary mages. And at the center, her father. Mr. Ramon stood bound but alive, eyes wild, suit torn and stained. Relief flooded his face when he saw her. Aliyah, he cried. Thank God, tell them you'll come back. They promised. Lucian stepped into view, immaculate as ever, smiling like a wound. Promises are such fragile things, he said. Welcome, little queen. Valerius moved forward, rage vibrating off him. Step away from her. Lucian chuckled. You're trembling, brother. How very human of you. Aliyah lifted her hand slightly. Valerius stopped. She pulled back her hood. The square erupted. Gasp. Cries. Fear. Lucian's eyes lit with triumph. There she is. The crown that bleeds. Aliyah forced herself to look at her father. You did this, she said, not accusing, just stating fact. Mr. Ramon sobbed. I was afraid. They said if I brought you. They always say that, she replied. Lucian spread his arms. Enough sentiment. Choose Aliyah. Accept the crown and end the war, or refuse and watch both our worlds burn. Valerius's voice was low and urgent. Don't. Aliyah's heart pounded so hard it hurt. She stepped forward. I won't wear a crown forced by fear, she said. And I won't abandon people to monsters. Lucian's smile vanished. You think you can have both? I think, Aliyah said, voice shaking but clear, that you've mistaken power for control. The ancient language surged, stronger than ever. The ground answered. Runes flared across the plaza, not violent, not destructive, binding. The hunters' weapons went dead. The blood-bound clans staggered as the sigils on their skin dimmed. Lucian recoiled, snarling. Stop. Aliyah's knees buckled. Blood trickled from her nose. Valerius caught her, holding her upright. Enough, he pleaded. You'll kill yourself. Aliyah leaned into him, whispering, Help me. He didn't hesitate. Valerius placed his hand over her heart. The world stilled. For the first time, vampire power and human will move together, not dominance but harmony. The runes shifted, reshaping into something new. A law. Lucian screamed as invisible chains snapped around him, dragging him to his knees. This is not your ending, Aliyah said through clenched teeth. But it is your limit. The square fell silent. Enemies dropped their weapons. The fire died. Aliyah collapsed fully, then strength gone. Valerius caught her, cradling her against him as if nothing else existed. Stay with me, he whispered, voice breaking. Please. Aliyah looked up at him, weak smile trembling. You finally asked. Her eyes fluttered closed. And for the first time in centuries, King Valerius felt something terrifying. Fear of loss. As the city held its breath, the future balanced on whether a human girl with ancient blood would wake, or be remembered as the queen who chose mercy over power. The queen who chose to stay human. Aliyah dreamed of water. Not drowning, never that. She dreamed of standing knee-deep in a quiet river, moonlight trembling across its surface. The current moved around her gently, patiently, as if waiting for her to decide which way to step. Voices echoed beyond the banks. Some ancient. Some afraid. One familiar enough to hurt. Aliyah. She turned. Valerius stood on the opposite shore, not armored, not crowned. Just the man she had once loved in Paris, rain-soaked and human in his stillness. You don't belong here, she told him softly. He nodded. I know. The river stirred. On one side, stone towers rose, dark, eternal, unchanging. Power without end. A crown that would never rust. On the other side she saw something smaller. Fragile. Sunlight through leaves. A cup of tea steaming in cold hands. Laughter that didn't echo forever. A mortal life. A choice. Aliyah looked down at the water swirling around her legs. Will they survive without me? She asked. Valerius didn't lie. Not the way they were. She smiled faintly. Good. Then she stepped forward, not toward the crown. Toward the shore where he stood. She woke to silence. Not the tense, waiting silence of fear, but the calm that comes after a storm has passed and the world dares to breathe again. Aliyah blinked slowly. Stone ceiling. Soft light. Curtains moving gently. She was in a chamber, but not the royal one. This room was simpler. Smaller. Human. Her hand twitched. Warm fingers tightened around it immediately. Aliyah. Valerius's voice was raw. She turned her head. He was sitting beside the bed, armor discarded, dark hair loose, eyes red-rimmed with something far more dangerous than rage. Relief. You look terrible, she whispered. A breath left him like a laugh that nearly broke. You always did have terrible timing. Her throat felt dry. Did it work? Valerius nodded slowly. You rewrote law itself. She frowned weakly. I didn't mean to. You never do, he said softly. That's why it listens to you. Memories returned in fragments. Lucian screaming, runes binding, the city going quiet. My father? She asked. Valerius's gaze darkened. Alive. Ashamed. He will never be allowed near you again. Aliyah closed her eyes, something loosening in her chest. Good. She opened them again. Lucian? Valerius's jaw tightened. Imprisoned between realms. Alive, but unable to touch this world unless summoned by the queen. Aliyah went still. I didn't accept the crown. Valerius met her gaze steadily. You didn't need to. She searched his face. Explain. He inhaled slowly as if choosing words carefully. You broke the cycle, he said. The queen's power no longer rests in a throne, or bloodline alone. It now responds to choice. Aliyah swallowed. Meaning? Valerius's expression softened into something almost reverent. Vampires are bound by restraint now, he said. Hunters can no longer enter our world freely. Humans are protected under covenant law. And the crown? He hesitated. The crown answers only when you call it. Aliyah stared at him. So I'm not a ruler. No, he said. You are a balance. She lay back against the pillows, overwhelmed. That's worse. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Yes, it is. Silence settled between them, not awkward, not heavy. Intimate. Finally she whispered, You knelt to me. Valerius didn't look away. I would again. That wasn't what I wanted, she said. I know, he replied. You wanted me to stand. She turned toward him fully. Do you regret it? Choosing mercy over domination? He answered without hesitation. No. She watched his face carefully. Even if it means you don't rule the way you used to? Valerius's voice dropped. I ruled out of fear for centuries. You taught me something else. Aliyah's chest tightened. What? How to stay. Her breath caught. He took her hand, pressing it to his chest. My world would have followed you into war, he said. Instead, they followed you into peace. Tears burned her eyes. I didn't mean to change you. You didn't, he said gently. You reminded me who I was before power made me forget. She squeezed his hand weakly. I don't want to be immortal. Relief crossed his face so fast it shocked her. I would never ask that of you. But, she hesitated, then asked the question that had been circling her heart since Paris. What does that make us? Valerius leaned closer, but stopped just short of touching her forehead to his. It makes us honest, he said. It makes us temporary. And it makes every moment we choose each other matter. Aliyah smiled through tears. That's terrifying. Yes, he agreed. And beautiful. Weeks later, the vampire city no longer whispered her name like a prophecy. They spoke it like a story. Aliyah walked its streets freely now, not guarded, not crowned. She laughed with children who were technically older than empires. She argued with elders who learned to listen. She taught vampires how to live among humans without hunger ruling them. She returned to the human world too. She finished her studies. She worked. She lived. And sometimes, at night, she crossed back through the forest where a king waited without a throne. Valerius never asked her to stay forever. That was why she kept coming back. On the night she finally stood beside him on the high balcony again, moonlight silvering the city below, Aliyah leaned against the stone railing. "Do you miss it?" she asked. "Absolute power?" Valerius shook his head. "I miss certainty. But I prefer choice." She turned to him, searching. "Even knowing I will age, change, leave." He looked at her the way he always had, like she was not fragile but precious because she was finite. "Especially then," he said. Aliyah took his hand, not as a queen, not as destiny, as a woman who chose love without surrender. Below them the city glowed, alive, restrained, evolving. And for the first time in vampire history, peace did not come from fear. It came from kindness, from humility, from a human girl who wore the wrong dress, refused the crown, and reminded monsters how to be more than what they were born to be.